This is the last panel. We stand in between you and lunch. So let me introduce the three gentlemen. You've met already Anthony Robbins from NVIDIA. I know I'm not going to get...
You're so awesome.
You've met Nick Psaki from Pure. You have not met Dave Egts from Red Hat. And between all three of them, they have a wealth of knowledge and experience selling into the government. And so we're just going to take a few minutes. It's not going to be a long panel, but we're going to take a few minutes to get their perspective on what government can do to help improve the process, to help bring innovation in. And I'm going to start with you, Dave, since you have not had any stage time yet. Give us your perspective on what are those 2 or 3 things you think government can do. And also, I'll ask all of you as you're chatting, is there 1 or 2 areas within government that you think you're particularly proud of, that Red Hat, in your case, was able to get innovation in government? So go first.
Sure. Thanks, Steve. So I was just to start, though, with Uncle Sam Meets Silicon Valley, I wasn't sure if I should wear my necktie or my skinny jeans, so I went with the necktie.
Yeah,
so you're welcome.
Yeah.
So
you and I should have not worn ties because the other 2 gentlemen clearly don't. But
that's all right.
I like the socks too, by the way. Yeah. Okay.
But I think that the really interesting thing, I was thinking that this session today, everybody would be talking about technology, right? Tech is on the backdrop here, but one of the big themes that I've seen throughout the day is that when you think about digital transformation, it's people, it's process, and it's technology, and where a lot of times I think if the government focuses solely on technology and goes to Silicon Valley looking for that hot widget, and then they bring it back to their agency, and then they put it in their waterfall model, and they don't have their people trained up, you're going to have the history repeat itself over and over again. So I was really excited to see everybody talking about people and process. So the process part is that's things like embracing agile, DevOps, open source, but it's also training people as well. It's the people part. How do you make them aware of how to take advantage of these processes, not just the technologies, but the processes, and also not just the people that you have, but also attracting and retaining the talent that you're trying, and attracting the talent from the schools that you're trying to get. So I know my daughter is watching on the live stream right now. Hi, Lauren. She's a computer science student at, yeah. So she is a computer science student at RIT, and everything that she is doing is in open source. All the languages that she's learning, she's doing a development on Red Hat Enterprise Linux, and so that's what the kids are coming out of school with. So for the government agencies to adopt that, they should be looking at open source technologies.
Well, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, as I did with Anthony earlier. Can you, to the extent you can, talk about it, can you cite an experience where Red Hat has brought some innovation into government? Yeah,
so one of the more exciting things, I'll talk about a community project that we worked on. And I know, like earlier during the intelligence community session, we talked a lot, and DoD, we talked a lot about CRADAs and all that. And to me, it's like, I think that CRADAs are a good idea, but you can even accelerate faster if you get people working on open source projects, because you don't get the lawyers involved as much. Right? And so one example that we have that, you talk to me, and I'm always telling people about the SCAP security guide, which is technology that helps people accelerate getting systems into production faster in the government. And so we've worked with DISA, NIST, NSA, all these agencies, also private industry as well, government contractors, to develop security lockdown procedures. So, and I was looking at the stats last night. So going from RHEL 5 to 6, we cut the time in half by doing it as part of an open source community. And then going from RHEL 6 to 7, that content came out in 25% of the time of the original time before. So it really accelerates that. And by automating your security profile, that frees up that time that you have for focusing on the mission, focusing on innovation, and looking at emerging technologies.
Fantastic. Nick, how about you? What are those 2 or 3 things government should be doing? You were in government, now you're selling to government. What are some of the 2 or 3 things that government should be doing that would improve innovation?
Take
risks. So one of the startup mantras, or the mantra of Silicon Valley, is fail early, fail fast. When we're talking about investments in new and emerging technologies, one of the things that I'm gratified to see in the last 4 years is that, number one, we're moving agencies to where the talent is. I actually did a little method acting today, so not only am I dressing the part, but I actually flew in from Los Angeles on the red eye. So now I know what it's like to be a Silicon Valley entrepreneur coming to Washington and understand sort of from their perspective what this actually looks like. So DIUX being established at Moffett Field, literally 3 miles down Castro Street from Pure Storage headquarters, is a great step in the right direction. But does it hurt us to have an innovation office out there? InQtel certainly does.
Yeah.
If you want to have your finger on the pulse of what's going on in emerging technologies, do that. Office space is expensive, but missing innovations is actually really expensive. Interestingly, in 2007, I was working on a workstation in Iraq that was powered by Red Hat Enterprise Linux version 5, and you guys had crossed the $1 billion revenue threshold, which we just did this year.
Wow.
Yeah, so startups become big companies, it's innovation happens in other places besides DC.
Yeah.
So go where the innovation is. Grab a couple of people who are wild, free thinkers and send them out there. And let them go find things for you. Have a discovery and innovation cell. Now, that's another thing I saw today that I'm really encouraged about. NGA's got theirs, USAID's got theirs. We're actually, this group is full of people who've been designated by their departments to go discover the new, foster that.
Right.
My third one is shadow IT. Now, Steve, I said this, I guess, last year as well.
Right.
Your shadow IT cells are not rogue. They're your innovation centers. They're trying to solve problems, and they're doing it in unconventional ways and often with off-the-books money. But they're trying to solve some real problems. So find them and foster them. Shine some light on them. Give them a little bit of direction, but let them run around and figure it out. And then you can actually go to market or go back to industry, to us, and say, I want a solution that looks like this.
Right.
I guess the last thing I want to emphasize is stop trying to buy boxes and start buying standards. The IT world that we're working in, whether it's cloud or it's on-premises infrastructure, is driven entirely by APIs and open standards. So specify how you want us to connect to your enterprise. Don't tell us what you necessarily want us to build. Give us broader parameters so that we can sort of snap in architecture. The corollary I draw is when you buy a car, you don't want to have to rebuild your garage. So just tell us how big the garage is and we'll park in it.
Good point.
All right, thanks.
Very good. Anthony, how about you? You've been selling into public sector for a while, and I'm sure you have your opinions on it. And you now represent, as we said earlier, a high-flying company out from Silicon Valley. What are some of your observations about selling into public sector?
A couple things. Can I take a contrarian position? Yes. Can I? So here's the deal. From my perspective, I've been doing this for 30 years. There's a massive amount of innovation happening inside the federal government, a massive amount of it, for which that we should all have immense pride in as taxpayers and citizens of this country. That's number one. Number two, it's the hardest business in the world. Like there's more complexity in the business of government than in any other segment of the world. But that doesn't mean it can't be figured out. The third thing, right, so the innovation's happening, it's hard. Third thing is we need to stop whining. How about that? How about start, because here's the thing, the world has changed. So you would be surprised at how much technology is being deployed in the, we would be surprised, we might be proud of how much technology is actually being deployed, small companies and startups is being deployed within the federal government. So I think we need to stop whining because here's the deal. If you go into, you can't just go knock on the front door of Ford and bring them advanced technology solutions. Go, hey, I'd like to see your CEO, and I'd like to go call on the head of R&D, and I'd like to sell you some stuff. Here's everyone's spec sheet says this. Well, my stuff is better, and it's faster, and it's cheaper. I could write the spec sheet for everyone. The magic is not in what you do. The magic is in what you do and how it solves the problems that our customers have. And so if you can figure out what is it that you have, how does it work to solve mission problems for the customers that you want to go sell to, you can probably find a way to get it done. And you know, whether that's, and I think Greg and others, you know, if it's in the DIUX guys mentioned, so if it's by teaming with systems integrators who have contracts or whatever it is, there's usually a way to get it done. But I think there's a lot of innovation going on. The business of government is hard. We need to stop whining. I think we'll find ourselves, you know, pleasantly, you know, surprised with the amount of stuff that's actually happening in this marketplace.
Oh, that's terrific. All right, I'm going to start down with you, Nick. Sort of give us a call to action. How, if somebody wants to learn more about Pure Storage and get involved in programs that you're on, different contracts, how do they do it?
Obviously, everybody always says the same thing, www.purestorage.com. And then, of course, there's all the usual social media outlets and so forth. You can find me. I'm pretty easy. Psaki is a pretty uncommon name. But I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Twitter, and I love doing exactly what Anthony's talking about, which is finding out what are your challenges, what are the big problems you're trying to overcome. The other thing that we know about information technology and problem solving and really the intelligence we're trying to derive from our data is there are almost no unique problems. Everybody's experienced, somebody somewhere has experienced a similar challenge to what you're doing. The IRS has a huge problem processing tax returns, and yet somehow Intuit manages to file 183 million of them every year on time, securely. It's a good group of guys to talk to. So come talk to us. Somebody out there has helped another commercial entity or another government customer overcome the same kind of challenge and learned a few things along the way to help smooth that process. So please feel free to reach out to us.
Great. Dave, your turn.
Okay, so when you look at people that are embracing open source and you look at your technology stack of how you're going to be implementing technology, focus on, think about the boring stuff, the stuff that, let a vendor do that for you, okay? So for instance, if it's the operating system or the container platform, and one of the things that we're famous for is that we make the technology boring, right? Where it just works, right? Where that frees you up to innovate. But it's more than just using the open source software. It's being a contributor to the open source projects themselves. So if you think about the previous speakers from the intelligence community talking about like so many common problems that are being faced with geospatial intelligence data having common applications in the commercial world. Open sourcing a lot of that technology that isn't necessarily mission specific allows you to get contributions from people all over the world, including private industry. So that makes your projects a lot more valuable and a lot more useful, and you can deliver to your stakeholders a lot faster.
Terrific. Nick, you said you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I did. Collaboration is huge, and the opportunities to come together at this type of a forum, government CIO, and to meet your colleagues who also have similar types of challenges is a great way to learn what else they're doing. So it shortens the innovation cycle and the problem-solving cycle in your own organization. Keep coming to these kind of meeting events and talk to your peers in other agencies. It is incredibly valuable. As we do this, this happens in commercial industry all the time. Silicon Valley has to be the chattiest, most collaborative environment I've ever seen in my life, and it works. So, do come to these things. It is a great opportunity to learn from your counterparts.
Great. Anthony, how about you?
So 3 things. So innovation. It's not possible for the government to innovate at the rate at which we are all spending money. So if you look at like AT&T and Verizon, they're spending more money in R&D on an annual basis inside the U.S., where the DoD, for example, cannot innovate on their networks fast enough. So we have to figure out how to bring innovation and partnership to the government like never before. The same could be said in cloud, and the same could be said in a number of areas. But don't miss the fact that science and technology spending is still a lot of money, right? So we got to figure out how to bring innovation. The next thing is training, and Greg mentioned training. So there's, I don't know, pick your favorite number. There's rumored to be a million architects and developers that are across the federal government, including the systems integrators. So there's a base that we are responsible for training, because there's no way that the government's going to outsource all their mission critical systems. They'll go to the cloud when they can, but they won't go all the time. So if any of us think of, hey, just give it to commercial industries, that's an IQ test that you just failed, right? Because the idea is government's going to have a highly trained and skilled workforce that can manage these systems in support of whether it's warfighters or citizen services. So innovation and training. I mean, in the case of training in cyber, we won't fill the cyber jobs that are currently open in our lifetime. So there's more jobs that we're not going to get there. So we have to do some things differently. The final thing I'll say is probably the need for partnership has never been better. And the federal government doesn't want to be sold to. One of the oldest professions in the world is selling, sales, and one of the most despised profession in the world is sales, right? And so, but everybody wants to be served. And so what I always challenge my teams with is figure out the customer's mission requirements. And I'll illustrate it with a quick story, 30 seconds or less. Don't get nervous, Steve. So this summer I happened to land aboard the USS Macon Island, an amphibious assault ship, and it was amazing. So I landed aboard, at sea, and I got to tour it. I got to look in the eyeballs of many of 4,000 members of the crew that help protect this great nation that we all live in. And they're 18 to 22-year-olds. It's amazing. And I had lunch with them. I met with them. I toured the ship. It was amazing. And I got a chance to see the technology on a world-class amphibious assault ship that's part of our one of the most amazing navies that the world has ever known. And the technology that was aboard was like end of life before these kids were born. Right? It's a big deal. So now the complexity of upgrading technology aboard something like that, or within Navy programs across the DoD, it's very difficult work. But it's not that difficult compared to selling to Ford, and other large global enterprises. So I just kind of say, get very focused on the innovation opportunities that we have. Figure out how to partner. We have to train the government workforce, and then we have to figure out how to serve this marketplace. And you don't serve them by whining about what can't be done. You serve them by figuring out what can be done and how to serve this great nation's warfighters and citizens.
Fantastic. Great. Well, again, because of the three companies that these gentlemen represent, we were able to put this event on today. So please join me in thanking them very much.